Hey y'all, I'm Elena, and this is the Shift Happens F1 podcast. So, before I get started with the most dramatic, boring race of the season so far, I've got a few important things to share with y'all. So, I have a bit of an update to share for y'all. My lovely co host, Ariana, will not be continuing as a full time co host on our podcast anymore. Since I'm heading abroad to Italy this fall, the time difference and schedule complications have made it really challenging for us to coordinate. So instead, I'll be taking over with the podcast full time. But don't worry, Ariana will still be popping in now and then to chat and say hello. She's still creating amazing content, focusing more on American racing. So make sure to follow her on all our socials and please stay updated with her exciting journey. Now, I know it's been a hot minute since the last episode, which was the Chinese Grand Prix. And oh my lord, that feels like well over a year ago. Life has just gotten really hectic with the summer. I've been working and taking summer classes and labs, and I really needed a break kind of from the podcast to deal all with that craziness. But I am back and I am ready to talk all things F1, and I'm really excited to, just grow the podcast and keep doing it. So thanks for sticking around. Now let's get into it. So, what a doozy of a weekend, specifically for McLaren and Red Bull. So, let's jump into the McLaren drama, get it out of the way, because there's a chance I may talk about it for 20 minutes. So, I feel like I said everybody's heard about the absolute crazy things that the McLaren team did this weekend to not only one of the drivers, but both. They essentially emotionally manipulated Lando for more than half the race. So to give you some context, they started this week with a McLaren 1-2 from qualifying, which was so great for them. They were starting off strong, and the race started. Piastri got really ahead. He had a great start. Lando and Max kind of going at it a little bit for a while, and that was kind of it. Now, we all know how Oscar suffers with keeping his tires, alive and not degrading them too much, but he knew he wanted this win and he kept them up. He did well. And then it all started going downhill when pit stops came in. So normally you would think since Oscar's ahead, you'd pit Oscar first. Nope. McLaren decided that they were going to pit Lando, which they did, and then afterwards Oscar, essentially trying to do an undercut. Now, they did not let Lando know that they were trying to kind of do an undercut. I guess with how it laid out, he kind of thought maybe he was just going to end up getting the win until there was a radio message across from him telling him that he needed to give back the position of P1 to Oscar. Now, I'm not a Formula One driver, but I know that if I was in that position and I was just told, hey, you have to give back the position, I would be a little upset. I'd be a little frustrated. I'd be like, you pit me first. So don't you want me to be first? No. Apparently, they had told Oscar that, hey, we're going to go and talk to Lando. Lando's going to give you your spot back. And then that's kind of going to be it. Like, we'll see how the rest of the race goes. Lando did not take kindly to this team order and essentially didn't give it back. So much so at the point where the McLaren team started manipulating Lando emotionally over the radio. Lando's response to this was, if he can catch up, I'll give him the spot back. And rightfully so, that is 100% a thing. Like, he didn't agree to giving back Oscar's place. Well, quote unquote, Oscar's place. He didn't agree to this team swap. Like, he just was caught out of the blue, and the McLaren team was like, yeah, you have to do this for us. And he was like, what are you talking about? It was like if they gave Lando his favorite cookie, and then they were like, actually, that's not for you. I know you really want that cookie, Lando, but that's for Oscar, so I'm going to need you to hand that over to him for us, please. I know you'll do the right thing. Which, that last statement is crazy, because that's what they said over the radio to him. It's the exact radio message. I know you'll do the right thing. Like, they're trying to, appease to, his human side. Like, this isn't you, Lando. This isn't the Lando I know. I know you'll do the right thing. Think about Oscar. When he's down on the second place podium, he'll be crying himself to sleep tonight because you didn't give him back his place. Also, they were lying to him. They lied to Lando so many times. They were like, Lando, you kind of need to slow down because you're degrading your tires too much on turn blah, 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 blah. And you kind of need to slow down. Why on earth would you tell your driver to slow down? They also told him that he needed to slow down because he was going too fast. Too fast. Are you serious? What team goes on the radio to their driver and goes, hey, dude, I'm going to need you to slow down. You're getting a little too fast for us out there. It is crazy. And like I said, I completely understand why Lando would be frustrated. You're ahead of your teammate in the points because he is. You were pitted first. The team didn't inform you Oscar would be trying to undercut you. The fact that they just told Oscar Lando was going to give him back the position without Lando's agreement to that. I could go on and on about this and just talk about how stupid and crazy and frankly unprofessional this is. Eventually, Lando did give him back the position, but like 3 laps to go from the ending of the race. And personally, if I was Lando and I got told that and I was angry about it, I would think about it and then I'd go maybe 20 laps before the end. I would go, okay, I'll give him back the point and then I'll fight for it and go and be aggressive. Like he just kept going and then and the last 3 laps gave it back to him. That gives him no time to go back and fight for that first place and try and get ahead of him again. I don't know. I'm not going to tell Lando Norris how to drive because that's crazy of me to say that. But I will move on to the other half now of this sad story, which is poor baby Oscar's radio message when he won. Now, I know he isn't the most emotional and happy go lucky guy like the other Australian that we have on the grid, but I know that had the McLaren blunder not happened, that radio message probably would have been 100% different. I mean, it's his first win. He came in a season and a half ago, and the fact that he already just got his first win with McLaren, and he's also the first driver of the 21st century to win in Formula One. I mean, I feel like he'd be a bit happier had it not been tainted with the fact that McLaren just decided to screw their whole weekend up, even though they got a 1-2. So, like I said, it's a little sad now that the win has been tainted by the whole team orders and emotional manipulation thing. But I do hope that he knows that he 100% deserved that win and that he did everything he could in that situation correctly. I mean, the team told him something, he just assumed Lando was agreeing to it. I hope Lando and Oscar can get past this and there's no hard feelings with each other because they 100% need to be turning their anger towards the McLaren team and asking McLaren, how can you do better? How can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? And how are you going to continue the fact that we did get a 1-2 in the podium and in qualifying this coming weekend at Spa? And they weren't the only team that had it rough this weekend. Red Bull definitely has taken a big step back from the 2023 season where they were essentially winning every single Grand Prix. Sergio bended in Q1 on Saturday. He red flagged the session and then that was it for him. It is really starting to kind of get intense and serious on whether or not he will be keeping his seat for next year or possibly even this year because we all know Red Bull, they are not afraid to make a mid-season driver change. They've done it before, they'll do it again. And I think that if he can't find himself in Spa, it may be over for him. I think it's going to be the make or break. He finished 7th, so it was a good recovery drive from being in the bottom 5 to getting up to 7th. But, I mean, you shouldn't be down in bottom 5, dude. Like, you have a Red Bull. You're supposed to be number 2. You got 2nd place last year in the Drivers' Championship. You can't be performing like this. Now, Max, on the other hand, he finished 5th place, which we know is not the normal MO. He has been really struggling the past few races, getting a couple 5th places, 1 or 2 podiums here and there. I mean, we're seeing other teams starting to catch up, and he clearly doesn't have the fastest car anymore. That seems to be McLaren or Mercedes if it's not Red Bull. And speaking of Mercedes, he and Hamilton actually were going kind of back and forth a little bit for that 3rd place when all of a sudden he decided to make a dive bomb onto Hamilton on turn 1. So much so that he touched Hamilton and his car went airborne. But if you haven't seen the photos, you 100% should. There have been actually some really funny memes used with the photo, but Just go look that up in your own time. And man had already been on the radio complaining to GP, who is his race engineer, by the way, at Red Bull. He'd basically been on the radio for most of the race already, kind of just complaining about the strategy that he was given, which it wasn't the best strategy, I will say. But he and GP were going at each other crazily. Like one of them's yelling, the other person's yelling back. I mean, they were going at it like a married couple. I mean, so much so at one point, GP called him childish and said that he wasn't going to do this over the radio anymore. It was so funny. Every time Max would yell at GP, GP would yell right back at him and essentially basically just told him to shut up and drive. And I know a lot of people took this and were like, oh, there's tension at Red Bull. Is Max Verstappen going to leave Red Bull in the middle of the season? Could he go to Mercedes? No, that's not going to happen. I mean, we all know Max Verstappen is a very blunt guy and he's kind of always been aggressive. Just because we haven't seen, aggressive Max because he's constantly been winning and outperforming everybody doesn't mean that 2019, 2020, 2021 Max Verstappen still isn't in there. When he gets heated, he gets heated. So I think that this is just kind of that coming back out. And I think he's a little disappointed in the fact that the team hasn't been doing well. And so he's kind of, it's emotional. You're in the car, tensions are high. You're not thinking straight when what you're saying a lot of the time. So I think that it was just them going back and forth, heat of the moment type of thing. I don't think it's anything to be worried about, but you never know. Formula One is an unpredictable sport sometimes. Hamilton did well after his win in Silverstone. He got on the podium, third place. It kind of looks like he's enjoying life and racing again. I mean, we've seen the sad Lewis Hamilton talking about, he may be looking back on his Ferrari choice now and thinking it may be a little premature. But that whole incident with him and Max, he later came out in some interviews. He essentially just said that the whole Max thing was a racing incident, which, fair, because he was the one who ended up on the better side of things after gaining P3 and then Max dropping down to P5. I could see where that type of sentiment is coming from. So I think he's starting to enjoy life a bit. He's winning, he's getting podiums, he's doing much better than what he was doing in 23 and 2022. So I think he's just happy to be competitive again. Not being competitive is Ferrari. Well, I take that back slightly. They finished much better than the past few races, since their big win in Monaco, which, just to let you know, I full on sobbed my eyes out. I think most people did when Charles won, but I was on cloud nine, full Delulu land. I was the conductor of the Ferrari Delulu hype train. I was like, this is it. We are going to keep going. We're going to win the world championship. He won Monaco. The curse is broken. The curse just decided to have delayed revenge because then Montreal happened, and then Barcelona, and then Austria and Silverstone, and now Ferrari depression has fully set into my soul. It was like a manic episode, being at the highest of highs and then just low, 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 low. I won't get into much more besides Ferrari did well. They finished P4 and P6. So there is a testament to that. They did decently. I'm not going to say that they did great. Their pace was off. And I think that they just need to do better in qualifying and set themselves up better. I'm hoping that Ferrari will make some changes this coming weekend and that they'll be better for Spa. Charles did an interview and he was like, fourth place, I'm not always happy. He goes, I'm not happy with fourth place, but I'm happy with how the team has progressed from the past couple races. And I agree with him in that sentiment. Every driver wants to be, first, they want to be winning. And, you're not happy unless you are winning. Maybe besides Oscar, I don't know. But I think it's good to see that Ferrari has kind of been, it's the first step towards getting better. This may have been a fluke. I don't know. Please, God, don't let it be a fluke. Let them win. Next race. Full on, please. Now on to Aston Martin. So the whole McLaren drama, that wasn't the only team that actually had essentially that same thing happen. So Alonso and Stroll had a little bit of a thing too. So during the race, Alonso let Stroll by to go and attack Yuki. Stroll was faster than Alonso. They were hoping to speed up, maybe get some more points. When that didn't happen, Stroll's race engineer told him to give Alonso the place back. This went on completely deaf ears. Multiple times, Stroll's race engineer reached out to Stroll and was like, give Alonso the place back. Give Alonso the place back, please. So much so that he told him Alonso was 3 seconds behind and that there was no one behind either of them, so there was no risk to either driver losing their spot. Yeah, Stroll just decided to ignore that, and the race ended. He ended up keeping his P10 finish, and Alonso finished P11. And let me tell you, Alonso did not look like a happy camper after that. Personally, I would not want to be on the receiving end of Alonso's bad side. And I understand why he didn't want to give the position back because he was P10 and Alonso was P11. That would have put him out of the points. Alonso would have finished, it would have been better on his record. But dude, when they tell you to give the position back, give it back. And I don't know if he's just on this like, I can do anything because they just signed him about a couple weeks ago for the next couple years, which, like, we didn't all see that coming. Dude, your dad owns the team. You've got a seat. Even if I was, a Formula One driver and I don't want to let anyone by, Alonso slightly terrifies me, so I think I would have let him by. Alpine had another dumpster fire of a weekend. Both drivers were out in Q1, P19 and P20, and then literally just moments after the race started, Pierre basically DNF'd, and that only left Ocon, and he finished P18. So we're definitely seeing the Alpine from the beginning of the season again. Trash can on wheels, but lit on fire. They were doing, I feel like, decently. They were doing better the past couple races than, what we saw in the first quarter of the season. But I guess they've just made another downfall, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they're mad because they're French. I don't know. So with RB, they actually looked like they were going to do pretty well this weekend for points considering. Daniel was great with qualifying P9. Yuki was in P10, which I was so happy when Daniel Ricciardo out qualified Yuki. I was like, oh, this is it. He's going to get ahead in the race. Yeah, no. Essentially, things were going pretty well. And then all of the sudden, RB decided that they were going to pit Daniel really early. And then his race just basically got screwed from there on. He ended up finishing P12, which going from P12 to P9, especially when you're trying to show Red Bull that you are competent and that you're a good driver, also with Yuki doing the same thing, every point matters. Every time you best your teammate, that looks good. And I think that he is right to be mad at the team for that strategy call, which it was horrible and it was not good. And I hope that next week is much better for him. But Yuki did have a good weekend. He finished P9. Nothing much more on that. He got the good strategy. So nobody really got penalty points this weekend. It was, like I said, relatively calm, kind of boring, except for, God bless the broadcast for doing those radio messages. They definitely livened it up for us. But Max Verstappen was investigated by the FIA after the race for his collision with Hamilton, and they came back and basically just said that it was a racing incident and that no penalty points would be awarded to him, which, if you watch the video, I think is a little crazy because he deliberately goes in, and I can't tell if he locks up or not, but the fact that he was going for it when he wasn't even past the apex is just, it's crazy. Other than that, one DNF, which was Pierre, and that was about it. So the results of this Hungarian Grand Prix were P1 Piastri, P2 Norris, P3 Hamilton, P4 Leclerc, P5 Verstappen, P6 Sainz, P7 Perez, P8 Russell, P9 Sonoda, P10 Stroll, P11 Alonso, P12 Ricardo, P13 Hulkenberg, P14 Alonso, P15 Magnussen, P16 Bottas, P17 Sargent, P18 Ocon, P19 Zhou, and then a DNF from Pierre Gasly. Now, over the past couple races, the constructors have really moved around. So Red Bull is still leading, but they're only leading by 51 points. And instead of leading by Ferrari, they are now leading by McLaren. So McLaren has surpassed Ferrari. Ferrari is now down in third, Mercedes fourth, Aston Martin fifth, RB6, 7 Haas, 8 Alpine, 9 Williams, and 10 Kick Sauber. You know, it's one of those things of we are starting to see the grid shift significantly, and you know, who has the fastest car this weekend, who has the best pace in qualifying versus who has the best pace in the race, you know. And we're starting to see this kind of become more of a big deciding factor. And I think it's really exciting. I think there have been 7 race winners. There have been 7 race winners in this season alone. And I think that is astonishing. I don't know the last time we saw something like this. We went straight from Mercedes domination era to, oh, a little loosey goosey with Max and Hamilton. And we went straight into a Red Bull domination era. And now things are finally settling in. Teams are upgrading themselves. They're getting faster and faster. And we're finally seeing good racing, good race drama. And I'm excited for all that is to come. And all that is to come next week is Spa. So this is my favorite track ever besides Monza. I'm pretty sure they're tied for me, but I'm super excited for this weekend. So I think this is going to be the race that makes or breaks Sergio and whether or not he's got his seat. He really needs to show up in Spa, and I think if Max Verstappen has, you know, a not good race this weekend like he did last weekend, I think Sergio Perez is going to have to come out on top of Max to really solidify his seat. If he gets close to Max, I think that maybe could hold him out for another race or two, but I think serious talks are going to be coming over the summer break, and you know, if he doesn't get to where he needs to be, he could be out. Now, who he gets replaced with, whether that's Daniel Ricciardo or Yuki Tsunoda or Liam Lawson, I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but it is definitely a topic to be discussed. So the track has been resurfaced, so no more bumps in the road, which Red Bull will be grateful for. So maybe we will see Red Bull come back. I think maybe Max may come back with a vengeance for the past few races. I think he's starting to get a little angry with the team. I think he's going to try and put his best foot forward, be really aggressive. So we'll see how it is. I think McLaren, along with Mercedes, could be up there. I think we're going to see those top 3 kind of go at each other. I'm hoping Ferrari can capitalize on this past weekend's momentum, but let's be honest, Ferrari is Ferrari, so who knows? But with that all being said, this is kind of where we come to an end today. But excitingly, we now have a TikTok. So if you want to head over there, we've got a couple of videos up about this past Hungarian Grand Prix. So go over there, like, follow, share to your friends, share this podcast. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to the Shift Happens F1 podcast. Tune in next time to talk about all things F1 and hopefully the Spa Grand Prix. Have a lovely week. Bye.